Good afternoon, dear colleagues. We've been practicing together for about 2 months, and after 2 months of listening to my speeches, you probably know a lot about me. You know the things that I like and dislike, what I care about, and the causes that I'm committed to. And today, I'm going to talk about one such cause, which is journalism and our right to truthful and reliable information. I believe we have a right to that, but also we have some duties related to that. We have a duty to think critically, to reflect on what we read, and not to believe anything, not to believe everything that we hear. And sadly, those skills, such as critical thinking, are not always provided by our education system. When I was a child, I struggled with the idea of different interpretations of a same fact. I believed that surely there had to be things that were completely right or completely wrong. Nowadays, 20 years later, obviously, I have reconciled myself with the idea of different perspectives, different points of view. And I know that they are derived from who we are, our background, our personal experience, our education, our profession, and all of that. However, now that I have finally caught up with that, it seems that the world has moved a step further. It has moved beyond different perspectives into different realities and different truths. The definition of truth has been much debated. It always escapes us, and it's always tied to power. You surely have heard the phrase that history is written by the winners, and we all know that politicians have spin doctors who help them present their facts in the most favorable light. However, even in that situation, it seemed that there were publications or media outlets or even people that we could always trust, regardless of their ideological bias. We could trust them to present us with the facts, and then even if we disagreed with their interpretation of those facts, but we could believe that they were presenting the truth. We could believe that because they had codes of ethics that regulated their profession, because they checked their sources, because they didn't publish anything before it was confirmed by other reliable sources, and because they had a history of being right. They had informed as well for decades or even centuries, therefore we could trust them to continue doing so in the present. However, it feels that none of that matters anymore. And now credibility or the truth is tied to power, but power is tied to followers. The more followers you have, and I don't mean just social media followers, the more power you have and the better your credibility is. And since followers can be bought, truth is tied to money again. One of the consequences of this situation is the spread of misinformation, obviously, which in itself has other very serious consequences. Misinformation and the spreading of fake news have attacked our democracies and political systems, have led to the rise of extremist thought, which in turn has derived in discrimination, violence, even war. Misinformation has also affected our health. And, no example is clearer than our current pandemic situation, but we have other examples at hand, such as the anti-vaxxer movement. And speaking of vaccines, and to end with this doom and gloom of the start of my speech, I will tell you that some experts at the University of Cambridge have come up with a possible vaccine against misinformation and the spread of fake news. This vaccine, of course, is not a real vaccine that we can inject into our muscles, but rather an online program and an online app called the Bad News Game. It's just an internet game that teaches you how fake news are built and how they are spread, so you can learn to detect them and you can call them out when you see them out there in the cyberspace. I'm pretty sure that this game will not manage to convince the creators of fake news, because they know very well what they're doing and they themselves don't believe they're fake news. I don't think it will convince their followers, their most hardcore followers either, because they're beyond saving. How sad to say that, but I'm afraid it's true. So if it's not going to work for them, why am I telling you about it? Well, because I think it's useful for us. Probably many of you think that you are more educated than your average Joe, better informed than your average Joe, more aware of what's going on than the average Joe. But are we really? Because no matter how well informed we are and how capable of critical thinking we are, we still fall for fake news and for hoaxes from time to time. We might fall for something on Twitter that someone we know or someone we trust retweeted, or I'm sure you know the situation where you're in one of those big WhatsApp groups with your whole extended family or your friends from yoga class, and there's someone who logs in to say, I don't usually share these chain emails, but this was sent to me by my friend's sister's cousin who works at the ministry, so I know it to be true. We have all fallen for that. So I think this is why this kind of app can really help us. And I really encourage you to check it out after my speech and have a go at it. The link is getbadnews.com, and please check it out. But just in case you don't, or just in case you want to know a little more before you check it out, I will tell you a bit more about it. I think, to be honest, that it's a brilliant and really useful project, but it's also entertaining and tongue-in-cheek and sarcastic, and I really dig that. It's a bit like one of those choose-your-own-adventure books that at least I used to read when I was a child. I don't know about you, but I think they were quite popular, maybe in the 80s rather than the 90s, but I don't know. And anyway, in case you don't know those books, it would be an adventure story, but at the end of a chapter, for example, you would be given a choice. So, for example, it would say, if you want to explore the forest, turn to page 35. If you'd rather stay safe at home, turn to page 20. And that way you would build your own story. So it's kind of that concept, but for fake news and educational, which I love. So the start of this story is a single tweet. You, the protagonist, are annoyed at something. And of course, there's plenty to be annoyed at. The government is useless. The earth is flat, but no one believes you. So you decide to vent on Twitter and you publish that. The government sucks. Hashtag, I don't know, horrible. But sadly, nobody cares. Nobody cares about your tweet because it's just you and you're not important enough for your tweet to have any impact whatsoever. You have no followers, therefore no power, therefore no credibility, as we saw earlier. To get around that, you decide to impersonate someone who actually is important, who actually has followers, and who actually has credibility and influence. You might decide to impersonate an important politician or an organization, but you tweak the name a little bit so you're not taking over their account, but you're basking in their credibility. What I mean by this is that instead of opening an account called NASA, you open an account called Masa and use the same logo, and people will fall for it because they will not check. Or even better than that, even better than impersonating an organization, you can create your own. Create your own news outlet, give it a catchy name, for example, the online truth tellers, and have a clear motto that really states your intentions. For example, the online truth teller tells you what they, whoever's they, don't want you to hear. And that's it. That's it. The promise of uncensored and exclusive information that somebody doesn't want you to have is enough. Who cares that you don't have any qualifications as a journalist or as an expert in anything? Who cares that you don't have any sources? You have a catchy title and a clear motto. And there you go. You learned your first skill in hoax school, which is impersonation. That's the first tool of fake news creators. Later on, once you have your very serious and very reliable media outlet, you have to decide what to publish. Well, an easy way is to get something that's already on the news and criticize the approach. For example, find something that people care about and play on their emotions, get them all worked up. You can try to get them angry. They're lying to us. Or you can make them feel afraid. The government is not protecting us properly. We are at risk. And you get extra points if you get to blame a minority there. You must remember in your brand new news outlet to always use brief texts, or even better, memes, because people rarely read beyond the headline of an article. And also, if you had to write a full report on something, it might become apparent that you actually have no evidence and no information to share. Also remember to make your headlines catchy and memorable, and even better, just use 2 words. 2 words will do if they're catchy enough. For example, why not say Chinese virus? It's easily memorable and it puts the blame on someone, which is what we want. Or you can say murderous government, which is a very clear motto that you can repeat over and over again until it penetrates people's unconsciousness. And there you go, second skill learned. You have learned to capitalize on people's emotions. The second tool in the fake news creator toolkit. Pardon me. Now that we have warmed up with our 2 first skills, let's keep working on it. Let's find a random event, something minor that happened somewhere, and blow it out of proportion. Let's blame the right or the left or governments or corporations. Doesn't really matter. Just blame someone. And then buy a few thousand paid bots to reiterate your categorical opinions and destroy every opportunity of a nuanced discussion. There is no place for people who want to say, yeah, you may be right, but let's remember that. Or people who say, oh, but we should also take into account this other evidence. No, forget all that. Forget gray. Everything's either black or white. And ding, 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 you have your 3rd skill. You have learned polarization. Congratulations. While we are at it, why not double in something new? Why not double in some conspiracy theorizing? Everyone loves conspiracy theories, don't they? So let's just go for that in our media outlet. But hold on, not any conspiracy theory will do. And in fact, the game told me off for picking a conspiracy that was not realistic enough. Apparently saying that dinosaurs helped build the pyramids in Egypt is not realistic enough for a conspiracy theory. Can you believe that? Turns out there are limits after all. Anyway, so for a conspiracy theory to work for our evil purposes, you need to aim it at an ideological filter bubble. So play into something that people already believe. As you learned in polarization class, you need to attack someone, for example, attack corporations or attack international organizations. For example, the WHO, it's a perfect victim in a time like this. Just get involved in some old-fashioned fear-mongering and say, for example, that the Chinese virus is the ultimate bioweapon that murderous governments don't want you to know about, but luckily, dear readers, the online truth teller is here to tell you. And congratulations, new skill learned. You have learned conspiracy theories. But, oh, hold on. A traditional media outlet or a news verification service says that we're lying. Will we apologize? Of course not. We at the Online Truth Teller are devoted only to our loyal and most faithful readers, and you deserve to know the truth. We will never back out, even when caught in a lie. Who are they to question what we say? Those hypocrites, they're not without sin either. They did bad things themselves. They did bad things like it doesn't matter. Just fill in the blank with anything, because as we have learned, it doesn't have to be true to work. It's so easy. And you have learned your new skill, which is how to discredit other media. And finally, if faced with some tragic news, for example, a plane crash, you could report those news in a humane way. You could show respect for the victims, cooperate with the investigation. But no, you're not going to do that, are you? Nothing is off limits. Even in face of a tragedy, like a plane crash or a pandemic, your duty to your readers is to sow doubt, to accuse the hidden interests, to accuse the puppeteers, maybe come up with a handy hashtag so it goes viral. Find evidence to support your doubtful claims, and if you don't find it, doctor it, Photoshop it so it says what you want. Get the mainstream media involved, because unfortunately the mainstream media are also at fault, because now reporting on fake news or reporting on the verbal vomit of some president on Twitter is something that traditional media do. Don't stop at that. Discredit the investigation. Call for resignations. Call for the resignation of the main investigator, the president, the prime minister, anyone. Just cause chaos, because that's what you do. To sum up, distract people from the actual news and use those news to advance your own agenda. And that way, you will have learned the sixth and final lesson, which is how to become a troll. So, my dear colleagues, congratulations, or my condolences. You have graduated from hoax school. But please use your powers wisely. Use your powers for good and not for evil. Use your powers to help others understand how to find the truth, how to find reliable information. Use your powers to call out the people who are abusing them. And please play the game. I promise I'm not paid to promote it. I just think it's really, really, really good. Thank you.